Memorial Church. And this church is in memory of the Harvard students who died in World War I and later World War II. So their names are listed inside the church, just like the Memorial Hall we were just in. You can see the list of the names of the students. This church is public, so you can enter and see what's inside. It's a non-denominational church. So you remember Harvard was a religious institution in the beginning. Now Harvard is not, so this is a non-denominational church. However, on Sundays there is a Protestant mass every Sunday open for everybody. Also, students can get married at this church, but the waiting time is about 5 years. So they have to sign up as soon as possible because they will have to come back to get married here. But it's very popular to get married here. This place is also the stage for commencement or graduation. Commencement is the graduation of all Harvard students from all different schools. And here, the president of Harvard and the deans of the different schools sit, as well as the commencement speaker who Harvard brings, who's someone important. And over here, you have all the students who are graduating sitting with their families in about 13,000 chairs. So you have students who sit by the school they attended, and the undergraduates by the house they lived in. In the trees, they put the flags of all the schools, and that is how they sit. Hey, thanks. And so they sit here with their families in the morning. The event takes place here to hear the commencement speaker, who in the past has been the author of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling. So she was able to see her own Hogwarts here. Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey, Joe Biden, Natalie Portman, among other important people. And the activity takes place here, and you can imagine it could take forever if each one of the students went up to receive the diploma. So the way it works is that after that, they go have lunch on the other side, and then they go back to their graduate school or to the house they lived in, and in a smaller setting, they receive the diploma. On this side, we have two academic buildings. The one farther there is the Department of Philosophy, where I took my ethics class, my ethics requirement that we all have to take. And this one is called Seaver Hall. And this one, as you can see, the building is really pretty because it was designed to look just like one full building. There is no division in the building because it was intended to look like one single brick. Also, the entrance is very interesting because it's so perfectly designed that if one person stands on one side and the other on the other, if you whisper something to the wall, whatever you say will go around and the other person will hear. So it's a nice experiment if you want to try. Every building where there are classes at Harvard, there is a library. There is, even if there is a small library, because there is no excuse for students not to study. So, but the largest library we have is in front of us, this one called Widener Library. Widener Library is very interesting because there was a student named Henry Widener. That is why they named the library like that. And Henry, well, he was a student at Harvard. He liked to collect books and old books, rare books. So when he graduated from Harvard, he and his family went to Europe for a couple of years, and then he collected more rare books. After 5 years, his family decided that it was time to come back to the United States, and they came back in 1912 in the safest way of travel possible at that time that connected Europe with America, which was a ship from London to New York called the Titanic. So they come back in the Titanic. They were in first class, and they were getting on the boat to save their lives, but Henry forgot his precious book inside, and he went back to the ship to find it, and his dad followed him while the mom stayed on the boat, but they never came back. So only his mom, Mrs. Eleanor Widener, survived, and the first thing she did when she came back to the U.S. was to go to Harvard to tell the bad news about her son and husband, but also to donate $2 million of that time, which right now would correspond to $20 million, for Harvard to build a library in the honor of her son, who studied here and loved books so much. She also donated all the books that they found during the trip. But she said three conditions for the book to be, for the library to be built. The first one is that they wouldn't expand it or modify it, as we saw in the old yard that there were some buildings that were rearranged. She didn't want that to happen. The second is that in the middle of the library there would be a replica of her son's own desk, so her son's office with all the books he used to have in his desk. And the third is that Harvard would replace a fresh new flower every day in that office. If Harvard didn't do that, the contract said that they would have to give this library to the city of Cambridge. But as you see today, almost 100 years later, this is still a Harvard library, which means that Harvard has been fulfilling these three requirements that she wanted. So, my question is, where did they put all the books that didn't fit here and anywhere else if they couldn't expand or modify this library to the sides, above, or behind, or in front? Below, right? Below. So everything you see that is from the church steps to the library steps, from University Hall to these academic buildings, all these new yards below, 4 floors down, are full of books. So you're on like 4 floors of books. Yeah. So that is why Harvard University's library system, not just this, but like all the libraries, is the third largest library reserve in the United States. The first one is the Library of the Congress in Washington, D.C. The second is the Boston Public Library. And the third one is Harvard University. So I try to go to the -4th floor when I was here, first year student. And it was scary because it's all darkness, nobody's there. The lights turn on as you keep walking. And then I took an old elevator to come out of the building, and I got stuck between -4 and -3. I got stuck there. I waited a couple of minutes, and then someone rescued me. And since then, I never studied at that library. But I choose to study at a smaller one over there, diagonal. That one is called Lamont Library, and that is where I work in a cafe on campus. And that one is the only one that's open 24/7. And during the exams period, Harvard gives $65 to each student to spend in coffee. So you can imagine when we have our exams, everybody goes there to grab a cup of coffee and spend all night, because it's open all night, to study for their exams. And because the name of the library is Lamont, we call these students Lamonsters. On the side, you can see here, in between that one with the library in the end with the lights, and this huge one, there's a smaller one in between. That one is called Houghton Library of Rare Books, and that is the only library on campus that is open for the public, so you can go there after the tour if you're interested. And it has the collection in its collection, there is the one book that was saved from John Harvard, a copy of the Declaration of Independence, and it's open until, I believe, 7 p.m. But Harvard's mission has changed tremendously from the religious institution it was to now. And right now, the mission of Harvard College is to educate citizens and citizen leaders for the world. And that is the mission I believed in when I came to Harvard. And that is why after I graduate from Harvard, I want to go back to Chile and work in the government. And become the president. To help my country. And because it's always about giving back. That's something I wrote about when I applied to Harvard, that my goal was to be educated here, but to give back to my community, where I come from, in the whatever way I can. And that is something that John Harvard believed in as well. And that is why our next and last stop will be the statue. Okay?
Can we take a picture there?
Yes. Yeah, we can take a picture. I can take a picture of you there, or here if you want. There.